Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here today at Ag Futures, both in the room and online, where we have about 700 people joining us. I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which this event is taking place, and the elders past, present and emerging. And could I acknowledge the Honourable Mark Furner MP, Minister for Agriculture and Agricultural Industry Development and Fisheries, Dr Beth Woods. Is Beth here? Hey Beth. Dr Beth Woods, the Director General, the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, our 2020 Agriculture Award finalists, the Kenny family and speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ag Futures 2020. My name is Pip Courtney and I will be guiding you through today's program. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to get out of my tracky dacks and my Ugg boots, brush my hair and put some makeup on, and mix with some real live humans. It's quite exciting just being out and about. The first trip the Landline crew did where we could stay overnight after the lockdown, we went to Dalby for 2 nights and it was like getting ready to go to Paris. It was just so exciting. So to all of those watching online, it is a quite odd experience being here. We're all spread out, we're all social distancing, but it's great to be out. Now today's program focuses on innovation and investment in Queensland's agricultural sector. When Ag Futures was first held, there were 300 people here in Brisbane for a 2-day event. Fast forward 4 years, and who knew what was to come? But as if a global pandemic is going to stop ag innovation. A nifty pivot, surely the buzzword of 2020, and a word now I'm sure my boss over there, Kathy Schnitzling, is sick of seeing in scripts, so we have to come up with another word. So this pivot that brings us here today with a few guests at the Brisbane Convention and Exhibition Centre and 700 people watching online, which is such a great number. Good on you for signing up. Before we start today's proceedings, there are a couple of housekeeping matters to run through for our in-person guests. So we're going to maintain our social distancing. Please turn your phones to silent. And in the case of an emergency, please exit the room and follow the directions of the staff. There's an entrance and an exit, so that's the entrance there. The exit is the second door up there. And toilets are on the other side of the foyer, just up a few stairs. And we will have time for questions for all the 3 speakers. So if you can hold your questions till then, but they're amazing, it's a real treat, and the questions I'm sure will come thick and fast. Now, the agricultural sector is facing unprecedented opportunities in the face of a number of domestic and global challenges. Queensland is well positioned to take advantage of these opportunities and find innovative solutions to the challenges that face the sector. We have some of the brightest minds in the world here in Queensland and a world-renowned reputation for high-quality, trusted agricultural products. So let's begin. Our program today is, firstly, we'll hear from the Honourable Mark Furner MP. Our first guest speaker will be Jackie Wilson-Smith, a global strategist from the Sustainable Innovation Company. Then Fabian Carneil, the CEO of Mulgowie Farming Company. Then Dr Sarah Pearson, Dr Sarah Pearson, the Department of Innovation and Tourism Industry Development. And then to conclude, we will announce the finalists and winners of the Queensland Agriculture Awards. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Honourable Mark Furner, the Minister for Agricultural Industry Development and Fisheries.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll also commence by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the lands which we gather here this morning, their elders, both past, present and emerging. I'd like to also acknowledge Pip Courtney, a good friend of mine, and it's good to see you again, Pip. And I concur with your views in getting out there. There's nothing I was more frustrated than being caged up like a crazy lion early the beginning this year. But getting out after February, March, seeing stakeholders, primary producers that I thoroughly engage with and enjoy was a pleasant outcome. So I absolutely understand how you felt getting out to Dalby. Also like to acknowledge all the guest speakers that are here today that Pip's already recognised, but in particular the Peter Kenny family, his wife Hilary, son Jim, daughter Sarah, also Alan Dingle, the President of Queensland Farmers Federation, also Georgie Somerset, the President of the Ag Force, and my Director General Beth Woods from Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you this morning, and I remember quite well the Aggie Futures last year that we're involved in. I do acknowledge the 700 participants online, and that's something we do these days in terms of engagement, and it's incredible to think that historically we've always been of the view that we need to engage face to face, but as we innovate, as we look at the social and technology opportunities, not only in this portfolio but others, we'll see more opportunities to do that in the future. But what a year. You know, who would have thought at the beginning of this year, particularly in agriculture, after several years of long protracted drought, after the monsoonal event up there in west of Townsville last February, bushfires, and now we have COVID-19. You would have never thought we'd have this experience, but we live in these unprecedented times, and the next thing on the agenda, if you listen to BOM, is a La Nina weather pattern that's coming through. I hope they're right, because I want to see your dams full. I want to see your rain gauges overflowing, and I'm sure every primary producer, not alone here but also online, would be wishing for that as well. So one thing we did as a government, the Palaszczuk government, moved very quickly early in the early stages of declaring agriculture an essential industry. And that was the right move to do, because we were the first government to do that. Because we understand the importance of agriculture. We understand the people behind the fields, behind the businesses, behind the food chains, and those that make sure we have food on our table and export that food globally. So that's why we moved quickly, and also moved to assisting the industry with measures like the $12.5 million assistance package, well-targeted innovation, well-targeted winning new markets. So there has been no doubt impacts on supply chains, and I'm pleased to report our agriculture and supply chain have shown a high degree of resilience. And we also moved to be proactive in terms of the outsets. Recently the Premier released the Queensland's Unite and Recover economic plan, outlining a way forward, and that plan no doubt is focused on agriculture and food sector as well, highlighting one of the Queensland's economic stabilities. One of the stabilities that will see us as we come out of COVID-19 will be a winner and a champion out of including natural resources as well. So if you break down the new recovery initiatives, $5.5 million in terms of digital transformation into agri business, $5 million in reinvigorating the agriculture trade relations. And one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed just recently, I want to give some credit to my department, but also the Premier, in terms of part of her portfolio of trade, of doing what I believe is Australia's first virtual trade mission with our greatest agriculture trading partner, Japan. So we started here 2 weeks ago on a lunch. It was supposed to be a reciprocal lunch with Tokyo at the time, but due to the pandemic and the cases they've experienced, it was a one-way lunch, them experiencing us enjoying lunch here in Queensland, but also maintaining that true relationship that we enjoy with Japan, our greatest trading partner for agriculture. And then later on during that week, we went up to Townsville. We're involved in some visitation down to Ayr, to the retractable roof greenhouse down there that we're going to MOU with Japan with, their department, and then followed on through a further lunch in Townsville with growers and primary producers up there. So as you can see, we are invested, we are focused on, and we're fair dinkum when it comes to making sure we maintain our trading partners and our most important trading partners. And I know that our next concentration will be on South Korea, because they're saying, well, pick me, we want to be part of this process as well, and we will. And that's why we've invested in those maintaining those trade relationships. Furthermore, $2 million for agricultural diversification assistance, including ag tourism, which is another opportunity for people out there, and I'll talk to that later on a particular primary producer where they've diversified into looking at other measures of maintaining their business. Also, additional round of Queensland Feral Pest Initiative, $5 million to support the construction of cluster fencing out in the west, seeing sheep return to Western Queensland. So an amazing initiative that out of opposition the Premier fought for in policy and is now delivering. So we're seeing sheep return to the west. In many cases, I was up there in Longreach only a month ago seeing property shear for the first time in 10 years. So an incredible initiative. Ag Futures is all about innovation. So that's why the 5.5 digital transformation in ag business has the ability to unlock Industry 4.0 and the ag business and food future in Queensland. So these technologies are delivering quickly and changing the systems of production, managing, and also the governance. And the focus is all about increasing adoption of digital solutions to keep pace with rapid changes, build collective capability in an increasing digital world. And DAF is working with industry and other partners and Agri Businesses Digital Solutions Program to explore those technologies, those digital systems that have potential to increase agri businesses' resilience, their responsibleness to future disruptions, as well as enabling industry-wide learning. And further this today, I'll announce and launch a new dedicated Ag Tech web portal of agri business called Ag Tech. Growing Our Future provides a single landing place for producers to connect with government and industry to explore ag tech opportunities for their businesses. So producers can hear firsthand of Queensland's agri business who took the ag tech journey, learn about their successes, their learnings, and to find out how to get started themselves. So in my time, nearly 3 years here, November this year will be 3 years I've been in this portfolio, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'd love to at some stage carry on with that if we're fortunate enough to be returned. But I've been absolute pleasure meeting a multitude of different people. You know, I think there's everyone in this room I've met along the path, but there's people out there unfortunately couldn't arrive here today, and there'll no doubt be people online. But I want to acknowledge one particular person that's been incredibly hard-working, smart, innovative in terms of what they do. I'm referring to Kay and David Tomarot, where I visited their property down at Kerry Valley, which is near Beaudesert, south of Beaudesert, probably about 2 years ago now, and was extremely impressed with the way they had innovated down there. I had the opportunity to hear about their family involvement with that farm since 1880. They've been producing a range of products: cheese, butter, eggs, ice cream and pork. And Kay and Dave, they seized the opportunity, they saw the opportunity and understood why they had to diversify and look at other initiatives. So they had two historical properties on the farm, and they invested in that to give a taste of farm visitation. And back in those days, before COVID-19, they were investing in South Korean tourists to visit and stay with them and get a real taste of Queensland farming while enjoying this beautiful state of Queensland. And I know their efforts, and the family business will maintain a sustainable working farm and a truly inspirational, we will unite and recover from this economic disruption called COVID-19 pandemic in the future. And that's an example of what they've done down there. Obviously now looking at a domestic market where they're engaging people on those properties and adding to the value of their farms. So it's for these reasons the Queensland Government has made them one of our first and fine #EatQueensland champions. Like David Pugh here, the excellent chef we have here at the Brisbane Convention Centre, another #EatQueensland, and a number of recipients that we've provided over time, recognising the true commitment they provide in promoting Queensland produce. So in closing, can I say that the Palaszczuk Government and the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries are definitely committed to agri-businesses and recovering out of COVID-19. And I'm pleased to be here today and hear the showcase from some of the very best in this business and the sector can offer. And I thank you very much for this morning. Enjoy the presentations and mainly keep safe out there in this current world we live in. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Minister. And I think one thing that COVID-19 has done for the ag sector is it has increased the public's appreciation of where their food comes from. That is something we've definitely noticed since we've been back out filming. And I think that, coupled with rain, if it does come, is really going to lift the spirits of Queensland producers. So fingers crossed for the La Nina. When we asked our next speaker, Jackie Wilson-Smith, what is something that perhaps we don't know about you already? And she said, I can still do a cartwheel and crack a whip. So this morning could be about to be getting interesting. Well, it would seem by reading her profile that that is not all that makes Jackie interesting. She's been driving strategy, innovation and sustainable transformation since 1995, when she switched from being an accountant into a design-led innovator, holding global roles with McCormick, Gourmet Garden, Mondelez, Constellation and Hardy Wine Company. In 2019, Jack founded the Sustainable Innovation Company on a mission to catalyse impactful innovation and radical change in a VUCA. This is a new one for me, VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. Jack works, another new term, globally, global, local and virtual, and aspires to be known as a pioneer of collaborative leadership, capable of mobilising people, teams, communities and organisations to create better and radically change for good together. In addition, this is a very accomplished lady. In addition, Jack's co-founder and past immediate chair of Food Agribusiness Network and a non-executive director and advisor on a number of boards, panels and committees, including Food Agility, Traveller's Choice, AgriFutures Rural Women's Award alumni, Australian Packaging Covenant Organisation's Circularity Group, and Queensland's Manufacturing Ministerial Committee. In 2017, Jack was the Queensland AgriFutures Rural Women's Award recipient. Today, she poses this question. Drought, fire, pandemic, geopolitical barriers. How does Queensland play a meaningful part solving the systemic and rising problems in agri-food and fibre industries, locally and globally? Thanks, Jackie. Look forward to your speech.
Thank you, Minister, dignitaries and fellow Queenslanders across regional and rural areas in particular. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk to you all about two things. One, purpose, and for Queensland to be able to find that purpose. And then secondly, to be talking about doing that together. So, I work in a paddock, in a shed in rural Queensland, just outside of Yamundi, about 10 minutes west of Yamundi on the way out to Kenilworth. It's an art farm, but from there I zoom around the world, and increasingly so thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I have quite an unusual role because I'm connecting with people constantly about these themes that we've been talking about today In particular, how do we connect better and how do we create change that is more impactful and sustainable? So it was about a year ago that I decided that I would leave the corporate world and become an independent, and to be able to work then across a number of organisations and teams and individuals about my mission, which is really about how we can bring about sustainable change, and to be able to do that in ways that are bringing innovation to the forefront and addressing problems. So it's a pretty audacious name to call your business the Sustainable Innovation Company. And people often say to me, but are you a sustainability expert? You know, do you know all about the environment? And it was about 5 years ago when I was working on a sustainable packaging project for McCormick that I became really involved in using the Sustainable Development Goals as a structure and as a framework for understanding what sustainability actually means. And I have found this really useful, and I think it can be very useful for Queenslanders as well when we start to think about sustainability, that it's so much more than the environment. Of course, the environment is an incredibly important part of it, as we can see number 13, protecting the planet for climate change. But it's also about people. And that's a huge part that I want to talk to everybody about today, is that it's about people and it's about health, it's about good jobs, it's about economic strength, and it's about diversity, it's about reducing our inequalities. And my favourite two, which is why my favourite two are number 9 and number 17. So number 9 is about the innovation and infrastructure, and number 17 is about the partnerships for the goals. And that's what I really want to talk a lot about today, because this is all about collaboration. So the second part of my business is the innovation piece, and for 25 years what I guess I have become an expert at being is an innovation practitioner. And how do you take ideas and commercialise them? Or how do you take research and actually translate that into something that's applied? Or how do you take produce and how do you add value to it? And how do you translate that into jobs? And how do you translate that into profit? So the process that I use, it's actually really, really simple. And that's what I want to talk about today, is that it's about understanding and having empathy for what the situation is, which is number 1. So where you can see the I down the bottom is taking the time to observe and understand and empathise with our customers, our suppliers, and the people that we want to collaborate with. And from there, it's looking at problems. So we've already the Minister's touched on some of the biggest problems that we have in Queensland. So I'll be talking about those, as well as how do Queensland's problems fit into the global problems of the world right now. So it may sound quite negative that I focus all the time on problems, but the reason is that as an innovator, innovators love problems, because they're like, give us a problem and it's like, great, okay, let's go about fixing it. So problems are really key, but the trick is to sort out what are the true systemic problems from the symptoms. So often we hear all the noisiness, which is all the symptoms. And so I guess there's a call out that if we actually do start looking at the problems, what is the root cause of it? And are there problems that Queensland can really rock at solving? And I think we've got a few, particularly when we look at our climate. So necessity is the mother of invention. So let's not shy away from some of the problems in the world. Let's think about what they are. So I'm going to start first, before we home into Queensland's unique problems. Let's just ground ourselves in what are the problems of the world right now, particularly pertaining to food and agriculture. So, and how are they going to impact Queensland? Well, many of you know these statistics, that by 2050, the world is predicted by United Nations FAO that we will have another 30, there'll be an increase of a third more mouths to feed. So, and with that, it sounds strange, but we will have to actually increase our food and feed production by 70%. So the reason why we have to produce so much food and feed is because there's a growing appetite for protein and cereals. And so to be able to have enough protein and cereals, you need to be able to fuel that. And then in addition to that, we've got so much food waste. So currently across the world, there's around about a third of our food is being wasted. So you may be thinking, why is she talking about all these global issues? Shouldn't we be focusing in on Queensland? But I think the issue is that these are problems we've got to frame what's our role in solving this on a global stage. And I think our purpose is really, really important. Because if you look at Queensland, here we are, we're positioned so close to where most of that population growth is going to be. And what we have in Queensland is we've got so many smart people, and we've got smarts in our technology. And if you look at the problems that we have, how can we turn these adversities from droughts, from bushfires, from floods, from water insecurities, from our distance? And if we look at our land, I know that we're going to be hearing from Fabian shortly, and we were just talking about the natural capital of our land, of our soil, and of our clean air. And if we're going to be helping to feed the future and feed the world in the future, we need to be protecting our most valuable assets, which is our land. Then if we look at our Great Barrier Reef, we are custodians to an absolute world treasure. And from a sustainability point of view, every year there's over 8 million metric tonnes of plastic is going into the oceans. And if we look at where exactly is that coming in, more than 60% of that is coming from not very far away from us. So there are things that we can do in Queensland to show some leadership in this space. And of course, we've had the impact of the pandemic. And what that's doing from a global stage is starting to really shake up the supply chains around the world. And so everybody's looking at food security and sovereignty, and how can Queensland play a purposeful role in helping build sustainable food systems that we can be selling to the world. So it's that sort of shift from selling commodities to also selling the systems and the smarts to be able to produce food regardless of where you are, regardless of the weather, and regardless of your workforce constraints. And of course, everyone says, well, let's work together, let's collaborate. Well, just like dolphins, let's all be happy and get in a room together and it'll be easy. Everyone bangs on about collaboration all the time. We must collaborate more. Unfortunately, I do lots of collaborations, and it's the main part of what I do is try and get people to work together. And the truth is, I often feel like this. It is really, really hard, and it's because we're human. And when you're human, we've all got a different agenda. Everyone has their own goal, or their business, or their organisation, or their government agency. Everyone's got an agenda. And so when we come together, there's a thing called conflict. It doesn't matter what we're doing, whether it's politics, whether it's business, everyone's got their own agenda. So, but there's hope there, because humans have done it before. They've built pyramids. So we can do this. So how do we do it? So I've got a question for you all. I'd love you to have a look at this chart and just think about yourself. So how this chart works is on the left-hand axis. So if I point here, you've got assertiveness, right? So how assertive are you? Are you right up the top? I am. I'm sort of up that end. Or are you unassertive? And then I want to think about you as a competitive nature, or are you a highly cooperative? Just think honestly about what you like, and then think about, what do we need right now? Right now in this pandemic, How should we all be behaving? And I talk to lots of people about this, clients and peers when we're trying to collaborate and trying to get something done. And this is why collaboration is just so hard, because particularly as Aussies and Queenslanders, we've got it ingrained in us from a young age, like I'm really competitive with my cartwheels. You want to be able to do those things, and we're all competitive. We're competitive with our sport. We've been brought up to be like that. We want to win. But the problem is when you have winners, there's always lots of losers. There's generally one winner and lots of losers. And when we've got abundance, who cares? That's fine. But when we're going through really tough times, we need to think about our behaviour. And that's why we don't have to compromise. What we have to do is work harder and try and solve not only your own problems, but you actually need to work really, really hard and try and solve your fellow, whether it's your customers or it's your co-competitors. And it's that behaviour about how do we work together so that we can start to get some better outcomes. So this is something that I'm personally working on. I'm not in that space. And I think many of us have to work on that. And I can often slip down into the compromising, but by default I'm competitive, so I'm working on it too. And I think a lot of us have share where I am. And some people are down in the accommodating space or avoiding and not having the conversations. So anyway, I'd love it if everyone could just think about where they sit on that spectrum. But Queensland, hey, we have so many crises here. So how do we behave when we have a crisis? I think this gives me great hope. I think we actually really dig deep and we act as we need to behave. I remember having some conversations about this late last year about we've got it in us. We've got it in us to be able to do this. And we've got so many promising assets to be able to leverage. I mean, just look at our heritage, our history, and I love it that the minister was talking about the cluster fencing out at, I saw it last year in Longreach and just seeing how this is coming into being. And we've got our industries that have been established, and we've got all the horticultural industries. We're going to be hearing about Mulgari soon from, we've got mangoes, of course, we've got herbs and spices. I love my herbs and spices. And I'm also excited about this rich biodiversity that we have. I mean, bioprospecting, of all the native bush foods, again, coming from our flavour background. We've got this ancient genetic treasure trove that we could be digging into, and just imagine the exciting breakthroughs that we potentially could have if we unravel that. And then from a technology point of view, probably my favourite space is imagine if we could get better at digging into, the biotechnology. And I love the idea of all the investment that's happening in seaweed. And could we be stopping those cows from burping and farting with some seaweed? Or, are there some exciting things that we could be doing with algae and vertical farm systems, these sustainable systems of the future that aren't so dependent on long supply chains? And distance. Well, of course, we're a long way from everywhere. So is this something that we could really rock at? If we could get critical mass and have greater transparency across our supply chains so that we can make quicker decisions and have less food waste. I can see some beautiful clouds on that horizon. That's a sort of a beautiful Queensland look, isn't it? So sustainability is the goal. And collaborative leadership and innovation are the tools to help us get there. I'd love to work with many of you on some collaborative models that are going to help us create more shared network value and greater value for our communities. If we can start to work together, we will go further and we will have more impact. We may not go as fast because it's hard. So a great example that I heard just the other day, I spoke to a mango farmer and he has a great customer in New Zealand, and he was saying that because he's already got this door open, he would love to, let's just say he's a mango farmer, and currently he sells to New Zealand, and the idea of this model is, imagine if he could tee up and create a giant food hamper and work with seafood producers, with avocado producers, beef, and have it a certain quality standard, and be able to leverage together the trade opportunities together, be able to leverage together what the logistics would be in reducing their costs. So together they could have value by working together as a network, as a cooperative, as a group, and then that would create more jobs for their region as well. So how do we do this? Well, I believe that we should be looking out to those emerging collaborative leaders, the people who want to have purpose and don't want to feel helpless and have everything being done for them. They want to step up. And I think these people are throughout regional and rural parts of Queensland. It's just taking the time to look out and find them. So I believe our purpose is to become a sustainable, resilient food system suppliers to the world, and that we can really tap into the areas that we have some strength in. So I think on a global stage, our give to the world would be that we can help produce food, and we can really leverage our smarts and turn our adversity in climate into one of our greatest strengths of all. So our give is about being environmentally sound and at the forefront. And our get, if we do this really, really well, is that we're going to be able to create more jobs and quality jobs for a skilled labour workforce, and that we will be creating sustainable cities and communities. And how we do it is through innovation and through collaboration. Let's create better purposefully together, from paddocks, from sheds, across Queensland. Thank you very much for listening to my talk.
Certainly I would advise all farmers that the future ag tech is going to be crucial for everyone, and if you're not using it, certainly start looking at it, because it will be a big part of our future. With how quickly the technology is moving, what we've seen come in the last 5 years, I'm pretty excited about what's coming in the next 5 to 10.
Reading the Ag Futures social media post about our next speaker, I was struck by this statement. Farming is one of the most honourable and decent professions on the planet. We're in the paddocks nurturing healthy soil, growing healthy plants, and producing fresh, nutritional vegetables so that people can be healthy. Growing up on his parents' orchard at Stanthorpe taught Fabian Carneil the value of a strong work ethic. Now he has more than 30 years' experience in Australian fresh produce industry. Appointed CEO of Mulgowie Farming Company in 2009, Fabian strives to lead by example and with integrity, and performs a key role inspiring the Mulgowie team to consistently deliver quality, fresh and nutritious products through innovation and sustainable farming practices. He's been director of the Produce Marketing Association and a director and trading executive within the Australian fresh produce export industry. As well as cultivating a broad network of collaborative relationships across industry, government, growers, customers and community groups, Fabian is passionate about the advancement of Australian agriculture and innovation to meet future consumer needs. Mulgowie Farming Company has more than 5,000 hectares in production across Australia, and is a sustainable, Australian-owned and operated business with more than 500 employees and 75 years' experience. Its proactive, effective response to COVID-19 and the lessons learned so far have been willingly shared with industry, government and community partners to help minimise the impacts of the unfolding crisis across the sector. So to share more of the Mulgowie story, here is Fabian Kanya.
So thanks very much, Pip. And it's great to have the Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries with us today, the Honourable Mark Furner, and DAF's Director-General, Beth Woods. Beth, you've been a voice on the teleconference for me over the past few months, and like lots of others in the room and online, a part of the COVID working groups that DAF has coordinated. So it's really great to put some names to faces. I'm honoured to be in the company of Hilary Kenny and her family. Pina made an enormous contribution to the agricultural industry, and he lobbied hard for agriculture in a very collaborative way, and he was a great communicator about our big picture in agriculture. He focused on communication and collaboration rather than confrontation, and our industry couldn't look to a better source of inspiration to find our way through this latest challenge. This morning I'll do my best to share a bit about the Mulgowie story, and particularly about how we've leaned into the challenges of 2020 and the road ahead. There's an old saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I guess in my case that's particularly true. I was born and bred in the Granite Belt, where my parents, like their generations before them, were farmers. Mum and Dad grew apples on a 100-acre orchard in the local Stanthorpe district of Pozieres. And I've got great memories of helping them out on the farm back in the day when a 10-year-old kid could learn to drive a forklift or a tractor. Driving machinery was pretty fun, and frankly it still is. Mostly my childhood on the farm gave me a real deep appreciation for the sheer hard work and dedication it takes to make sure that we can all enjoy food on the table. Farmers who work on the land, along with those who are part of the many related industries that support them, are this country's silent achievers. Challenge after challenge has defined our agricultural industry as resilient and farmers as resourceful. It takes a steely determination, and sometimes against all the odds, to deliver healthy food to consumers here at home and overseas. As is the case across agriculture, I've certainly witnessed the Australian horticultural industry evolve in its capability to meet customers' moving expectations. I've been a part of the fresh produce industry for over 30 years, and I was fortunate to get my start in the export industry here in Queensland. During a part of my career, I saw the Asian demand shift from traditional wet markets to supplying supermarket giants with high-quality expectations, a hunger for new varieties, and pre-packaged convenience versus bulk. There's another chestnut that's particularly true for the ag industry, and that is the early bird gets the worm. Our industry is so fast-paced that if you take your eye off the ball just for a few hours, you can miss any one of the critical activities that happen in a day. Crops have got to be harvested at the optimal moment. They've got to be packed according to exacting specifications, refrigerated and distributed with military precision to ensure produce ultimately reaches the consumer. And today's consumers have increasingly high expectations which are constantly evolving. Consumer behaviour is now heavily influenced, as we know, by cooking shows like MasterChef, My Kitchen Rules, celebrity chefs like Jamie Oliver, who talk about the importance of fresh produce and provenance. Now, social media feeds are full of hero produce, and growing food is all of a sudden cool. Add to that recipe COVID-19 pandemic with lockdowns and social distancing, and what you whip up is a revival of cooking, home cooking, and a dramatic rise on online home delivery meal solutions. Meeting this evolved demand is opportunity for our industry. The end goal we must continue to focus on, regardless of the challenges that we face, is all about providing our consumers with a constant supply of healthy food. Now, the pandemic has made this an increasingly complex proposition. Planning and delivery of raw ingredients, both domestically and internationally in the post-COVID world, is a whole new ballgame. Food producers have had to face volatile demand and shifting buying patterns at a speed that we haven't seen before, which we're still to a degree experiencing right now. The dust hasn't settled on the impact of this pandemic crisis, not by a long shot. The COVID risk to our industry is still very high, and we'd be foolish to drop the ball now. And while we leave the researchers to the vaccine race, we can't keep slogging it out in our own patch. We need to be aligned with effective measures that will enable our fresh food to be continuously available to our consumers. If there's a silver lining to this pandemic, it's a huge upswing in the important awareness, the link between the food we eat and health and wellness, as well as the provenance of the food and the essential role that the Australian farmer plays. When the pandemic hit, Mulgowie were one of the many farmers who joined the quest to clearly link our produce to health. Our industry bodies came to the fore by launching marketing campaigns to increase fresh produce consumption. Suddenly, the penny dropped to the wider audience that providing the means for people to have a healthy diet is an absolute essential service. Yes, people in agriculture are an essential service. Now, that's not news for any of us in the industry, but it's a sentiment that I'm pleased to see that's growing in the hearts and minds of Australians. Our industry doesn't willingly pat itself on the back. We're fairly modest folk. But I have to say that during the pandemic, to be able to have consistent supply of fruit, vegetables, eggs, seafood, meat, dairy on the shelves, despite all the logistics and workforce challenges, has been truly commendable and a massive achievement by both Queensland and Australian ag industry. It's an even more impressive feat when you consider that not only did we have to manage our Australian, Queensland and Australian customers, we also had to juggle the impact of COVID in our Asian markets as well. But again, I come back to the why. What drives us what we do in the ag industry? And it's this sort of feedback from a customer in Hong Kong that keeps us going. And yes, we're trying to get broccoli to Hong Kong, by the way. Very early on in the pandemic, our team at Mulgowie Farming Company set 3 core goals. We were determined to ensure that our people felt safe, that we could maintain consistent quality supply, and that we had to adapt and maintain operational and financial stability. Again, speed was of the essence. Almost overnight, we established a dedicated management team who ran daily COVID risk meetings. Their collective focus was to drive the implementation of effective measures and to ensure dynamic responses to the emerging issues. An agile mindset turned out to be our best defence. Our leaders and staff showed amazing ability to both innovate and implement. Of the many risks we contemplated, our packing areas presented the most complex of scenarios. With hundreds of people in close quarters across multiple shifts, several locations, the risk was and still is very real. Given the number one on that list of core goals was that our people felt safe, I can't tell you how grateful I am to the staff who put their fears aside to implement those effective measures to enable us to continue operations. High demands were placed on our team and they all stepped up to the plate. It was mission critical for us to maintain supply chain and shore up fresh produce deliveries and keep healthy food on dinner plates. Suppliers, service providers, logistics carriers, along with wholesalers, retailers, all work to be a part of the solution stretching their capacities and capabilities well beyond their comfort zones. The heightened communication and information sharing that we had in the end-to-end supply chains during that time now remains as our new norm. Our business valued the industry collaboration experienced during that COVID outbreak, and it's allowed us to gain learnings from a network of other ag industries, the cross-functional learnings. Plus, we also got to share some of our own insights. Between us all, we were able to tackle the crisis and respond with the best possible solutions to the myriad of challenges that were being thrown at us at warp speed. Today is also the perfect opportunity to give a shout out to Queensland Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. The team at DAF took a critical leadership role of facilitating the cross-ag sectors and organisational bodies and associated ag services, and the all-important linkage to government departments. They kept the lines of communication and collaboration open with Queensland Health, Safe Food Queensland, Queensland Police, to name a few, which just gives you the size, the absolute expanse of the enormity of what we were dealing with. The working groups were a useful platform that enabled us to practically work through a wide range of issues. The main agricultural group and the workplace health and safety group helped us with the timely development and implementation of effective controls at our farming and packhouse sites. Now, this picture, I promise, is pre-COVID. You'd hope. But the Workforce Availability Group tackled our labour stability and visa extensions for our contingent of overseas workers. It was also useful as we navigated the border movement for our seasonal workforce who were transitioning at that time from our Victorian and New South Wales farms in that autumn period. Effective risk management and planning was canvassed, and the Business Continuity Group were of great assistance. Discussions were held through the Supply Chain and Logistics Working Group, which really helped us deal with both domestic and export challenges. It led to the fast action from government on the instigation of the export freight subsidisation in order to maintain our markets. Working together worked. COVID has been the catalyst for a renewed enthusiasm in our agricultural industry to collaborate and adapt to the new environment and marketplace. Supply partners, wholesale markets, retailers, industry bodies and government organisations are all talking like never before, and it's great to see. But we need to go further to investigate and navigate the challenges ahead. To achieve sustainable food security in this country, we must expand and align our vision. What we need to build is a roadmap that navigates us past our current limitations. The vision needs to be good for the environment, good for the planet, good for the consumer, and good for the people on the land. Hopefully, with an inspiring vision, we can build a sustainable platform that attracts the innovative next gen of thinking, but will still allow our farmers do as they do best, and that's farm well. Think of it like this. A farmer hops on a tractor every day, and when he or she takes that same track in the paddock day after day, wheel ruts form. After a few years of travelling the same path, our farmer could literally let go of the steering wheel and the tractor would end up in the same destination. To survive and thrive in farming today, you don't need to turn the steering wheel 180 degrees. But you do need to get out of that wheel rut to adjust to the new norm. You just need to turn that steering wheel in a series of 1-inch increments. And as we say, in the time of COVID, you will pivot to a new destination. With adversity comes opportunity. And it would be a massive missed opportunity if we didn't use this moment in time to support each farmer to shift those tractor wheels out of those ruts. Our dream destination needs to be a thriving farming future, delivering sustainable food production, and it's not just driven on cost efficiency, but we're also rewarded for working on the environment, climate change, soil health to truly deliver nutritious food. At some point, everyone gets taken to their knees. The real question is, what do you do when you get taken to your knees? Over the past decade, and this current one is no exception, our Australian farmers have had everything thrown at them. We've had more than our fair share. I know at our place we've had cyclones, floods, droughts, hailstorms, heat waves, bushfires, pest incursions, and now add a new one to the list, pandemic. It just so happens that sweet corn is one of the main vegetables that Mulgowie produces, is one of the favourite foods of the full army worm. I'd never heard of this pest 12 months ago, and it's turned up, and it's now devastating our crops as it's marching down the Queensland coast. Who else knows what's in store for us during this pandemic? A collaborative and connective approach is a key ingredient, cultivating the new ag normal. But what that will require us is that we've got to go beyond those wheel ruts. We can grow and thrive together in the new ag normal, but it will rely on our industry embracing long-term change in programs that will successfully make necessary adaptations. Each program helps us turn that wheel just that extra inch. These programs will be great news for the future of farming and the sustainability of our food system, because they'll allow farmers to put carbon back into the soil. They'll attract new, talented and passionate farmers to our industry. And it'll help let us embrace innovation as we ensure that we can effectively feed that growing population that Jackie spoke about. Working together allows us to stand up critical, timely solutions to safeguard the food supply chain. Supporting farmers is an investment in creating vibrant regional economies. It will help keep experienced farmers farming, and it will attract the new generation to this decent profession. So I appreciate you all staying the distance with me this morning. And in closing, I'd just probably leave you with, I actually truly believe that combining the spirit and the ingenuity of agricultural farming communities with the broader industry cooperation and innovation, that Queensland agriculture can evolve to be a resilient, prosperous industry for our farming future. So thank you.
We're inspired by new technologies all the time in our business, whether it be in the packing shed or on the farm.
For this reason, we see a lot of applications where robots can improve the quality of life for farmers, growers, but also consumers.
Next, we have Dr. Sarah Pearson to the stage, who says to us, the future is here, thriving in an age of disruption. Now, she's so talented that I could read for the next minute about everything that she's done, but she's on time pressures, so she's given me permission to be incredibly rude and not background you. So here's Sarah. She's going to talk to us. She now leads the Innovation Unit at the Department of Innovation and Tourism Industry Development. And so coming back to disruption, the COVID pandemic is affecting our supply chains and resource availability. She's going to talk to us about what opportunities are presented for ag, what does this look like, and how can ag and food sector adapt. Thanks, Sarah. And I feel mean and rude that I didn't tell everyone how amazing you are.
Thank you. So we've had two incredible talks with some great wisdom and some awesome images. It's very difficult not to do great photographs of agriculture and food, so really thanks so much for those two. I'm going to be talking very differently from the perspective of a physicist and a tech nerd. So I have a PhD in particle physics and have worked in medical physics and a tech nerd. I invest in tech and help people to build tech companies, etc., etc. So a bit of a different view. And I'm also going to try and inject some real urgency, because I've also worked in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade on a global basis, helping other countries build their new economies. And I tell you what, they're not sitting around waiting, they're doing it very rapidly. So I want to inject a little bit of urgency. And apologies, I will also talk very quickly because I have to go at 9:30 and go and MC somewhere else. So apologies, and I'll try to whiz through here. Life was actually never going to be the same again. I know we've gone through a lot this year and certainly the last few years, but life was never going to be the same again. Do you remember all these things, the CD player, the radio, those big VHS cameras, all now in your pocket, in your camera? So if you look at some futurists, they say we won't experience 100 years of progress in this century. It'll be more like 20,000 years of progress. Technology is moving so fast that we don't have time to just sit around and wait for it to hit us. Life was never going to be the same from the perspective of our economies either. 75% of future higher growth jobs need science, technology, engineering and maths. 65% of them don't yet exist. We have no clue what they're going to be. We don't know what skills people are going to need to have. This is a time of incredible disruption. So of course that's also disruption in terms of agriculture. Our companies and our sectors are being disrupted. Think of defence. Cybersecurity is the new attack. We can think about building all these things that we build, planes and submarines, which are very important, but cybersecurity is really, really attacking us, never more so than nowadays during COVID. Also, the speed with which new products get to market. So I think it took the radio 75 years to reach a market penetration of 50 million consumers. How long did Angry Birds take? 35 days. We don't have time to sit around and wait for our new technologies to deliver products. They're delivering them incredibly quickly. Data is doubling. Global data is doubling every 12 hours. How do we deal with that? The human genome used to take 13 years to sequence. It now takes 1 day. This is moving so rapidly. How do we jump on this for agriculture and food? And of course, now we've been faced with floods, with droughts, with fires, and COVID has really sent the whole world spinning. So how do we deal with all of this? The world and life will never be the same again, but there is so much opportunity in this. Yes, there are challenges. It would be wrong to suggest that there aren't, but massive opportunities. Look at today. So we have a few people in the room today because of COVID restrictions, but you have over 700 people now online. That's, I think, about 500 people more than would have been here previously. This is people from all sorts of backgrounds that couldn't normally even maybe afford to come to something like this, let alone get here physically. How that opens up our access to knowledge and expertise. Supply chains being totally disrupted. Everyone's now going, oh my goodness, we need sovereign capability along our supply chains. How are we going to ensure that? The only way we will ensure that is through science and technology. We cannot compete globally without science and technology in our supply chains. I was in Vietnam and looking at what they're doing around provenance. They're using QR codes along the whole supply chain. Now, Vietnam are doing that. We can be doing so much more. And of course, we've heard this before, that there are changes in terms of consumer behavior, consumer desires. There's a strong desire to be looking after our planet. Again, science and technology gives us incredible opportunities. Think of renewable energy and what that's going to mean even in agriculture as well. The future of food. This all started, that what we've been experiencing this year started in food. It's really raised people's awareness of wanting to have fresh and sustainable and nutritious food. But also there are some real challenges around that if you think of developing countries. If you think about the countries that are growing most rapidly, Indonesia, for instance, how are they going to be able to cope with this? And that's where some of this disruption is coming in. If everybody wants to eat meat on the planet, we need 5 planets. It is not physically possible. Again, this is where science and technology can come into play. A company called V2 Foods, you may not have heard of them, but they're in Hungry Jack's and they're in the supermarkets now. This was actually an idea that came out of CSIRO. So an idea about how do we use legumes to make something that is like meat. Now, this is not a replacement for meat. It's not in any ways a competition, but it is helping to get meat to everybody around the world because, like I say, we do not have 5 planets. Clara Foods, another example of where they're developing new animal proteins, but using yeast. So they're not using animals, they're doing it through developing it in the lab. Provectus algae, this is actually in the Sunshine Coast. They're genetically modifying algae to then produce flavorings and colorings and things that can be put into foods. These are things that are all happening in Australia. So Australia is at the forefront of this food technology. The top two there have been invested in by a company called Main Sequence Ventures, $200 million fund in Australia designed to develop deep tech industries, including agriculture and food in Australia. Check it out. Agriculture being disrupted too. So I am new to Queensland, so please forgive me if I don't pronounce this correctly, but I think it's Gundawindi. Have I got that right? Yes, thank you. So Goanna Ag in Gundawindi, they're looking at using sensors across the farm and then using the Internet of Things to assess the water usage, to assess all sorts of things that are happening on the farm so that you can do it much more productively, so you can do more with less. This is also being combined with another company that Main Sequence Ventures invested in called Myriota down in Adelaide. They're putting up nano-satellites. We're actually putting satellites in space ourselves in Australia. They'll have masses of these micro-nano-satellites that will then be able to give us continuous access to data and what is happening on your farm. You will every moment of every day be able to see what's happening on your farm. And that, again, is another Australian invention. But it can also be looking at feedlots, so looking at how we feed and do our feeding much more productively. This is actually a DAF example I want to give. And I went up to Toowoomba and saw what DAF were doing there, looking at sensors within pig affluent to understand whether we're feeding the right amounts of food, so we're not wasting feed. So these are just examples of things that are happening in Australia. Of course, globally, we heard this earlier, there are all sorts of technologies going into feeding masses of people because, as I said, the population is growing so rapidly. How are we going to feed them all? So this is an example of some of those food walls. I actually visited one this week up at North Shore. They're called Modular Farm Co. And a fantastic couple of entrepreneurs who are building these modular farms and then helping people to see how to grow stuff indoors. Really exciting opportunities. All of this, this hasn't come out particularly well, but anyway, all of this can only be done through collaboration. This is a common theme that you've heard from all three of the speakers today. No one can do this alone. These challenges and opportunities are so complex. You need so many different pieces of science, technology, consumer behavior, agricultural knowledge, all needs to come together. And you can look to the science and technology world for examples of how to do this. Silicon Valley is a classic one. I'm sure we're going to share these slides with people. Bottom left-hand corner there, beautiful diagram of how Silicon Valley works with the give first mentality. How do we give to each other, lift all of us up to be able to get to these new opportunities? You need a whole range of different people. You need the entrepreneurs. You need the risk capital. You need the corporates, the government, and the university sector, all to be working collectively and collaboratively with that common purpose that we heard from Jackie. The common purpose being, how do we help Queensland to deliver incredible food products around the world as productively and creatively as we possibly can? I've been very fortunate to be involved in building these ecosystems for these new economies here in Australia and overseas, and we're really keen to help Queensland to take these collaborative models on board. Corporates have been doing it too. So I was Mrs. Willy Wonka once upon a time, so led open innovation for Cadbury, looking for new ideas all around the world. So corporates know how to do this as well. How do we bring all of this together? What about Advanced Queensland? And apologies, the slides haven't come up well. So here are some things that we have already been doing. I'm not going to go through all of them, but food and ag boot camps, ag tech businesses through the Ignite Ideas Fund, and Ag Tech Month in November. There's a few examples up there. We've also been investing in hubs. Now, the reason for hubs is to try and get some horizontal expertise. So, for instance, in artificial intelligence, in advanced robotics for manufacturing, in XR, which is augmented reality and virtual reality. Let's get these hubs across all of Queensland helping agriculture to move into and use and collaborate around these technologies. The vision that we have, I talked about that 75% of future high growth jobs need STEM, 65% of them don't exist. If we want to have a high value economy, if we want us and our children to have good paying jobs, jobs that are growing and employing more and more people, we need to move into this. So the vision is that we bring Queensland along on that journey. The other vision is that absolutely no one gets left behind. This is an opportunity for everybody, but how do we make sure that everyone across Queensland, wherever you are, whatever it is you're doing, you have an opportunity in this. And as I say, that's a very big opportunity in agriculture. Now, I'm sorry I spoke so quickly, but as I said, I have to be out in 4 minutes. But thank you so much for listening. Please feel encouraged that we are moving in this ag tech space already. There's a lot of great work that a lot of you are involved in, but how do we take that to the next level and really accelerate it collaboratively? Thank you so much for listening.
The future of AI is very bright. We've been developing tools to put the power of big data analytics and artificial intelligence in the hands of the farmers. And the next leap in innovation will come from the farmers, and we can't wait to see what the future of farming is, because they are some of the best in the world and have continued to lead the world in terms of agricultural innovation. And Queensland has a rich history of being leaders in this field.
Unfortunately, Sarah can't stay for the questions, but after these incredibly thought-provoking presentations, you hopefully will have questions about the content. So I'd like to invite our two remaining speakers back to the stage. And if people in the room would like to ask a question, please come forward to the microphone. Don't know where's the microphone's going to be. So if you guys come up. And so Sarah's gone, but what a great speech. Okay, so once everyone's... there's the mic. So, question one.
Great speeches, guys. I have a question for Fabian. What do you see as the main reason the ag industry has been able to respond so well to the pandemic?
Any other questions? Are any coming through from our online viewers?
Yes, Pip, we have one here for Fabian again.
Do you want to come up to the...
The question is, what actual challenges or habits are covered by the metaphor of the mud tracks?
Look, I think that we do need to continue to change, and I think the recent events show us that. And I'm not sure if it's able to be done just by ourselves in our own patch. I think that there needs to be a cross-industry and joint stakeholder government interaction to work out the solutions that we all need to make come into fruition the future expectations of the customer and our responsibility. So as I said earlier about the planet, about soil health, I think carbon farming is going to become more of a theme that we as responsible custodians of the land will need to continue to work on, and that connection with that to healthy soil and producing healthy, nutritious food.
Anyone here? Mike? Mike's at the back.
Hello, Mike Guerin. A question for both of you, if I could. There's a theme of collaboration going through this and the challenges of COVID over the last few months. If you had to pick one thing that would allow a step change in collaboration amongst all the things you've talked about this morning, what would be that one thing we could take away and think about? Thank you.
Thanks very much. So the question was about what could be the one thing that we could do to help accelerate more effective collaboration. And I think the starting point is to consider everyone to look inward, actually think about yourself, think about what you can do as an individual to start to make a difference, and to really look across your teams, your business, your farm, your department, whatever it is, and look out for those individuals who've got the character traits to really take a leadership role, but in a collaborative way. And as I was talking in my talk about what are those attributes, it's people who've got great empathy skills, and it's the softer side. We talk all about technology, and of course, absolutely, that's the vehicle, that's the enabler, but it's people who've got the really good understanding of all the different lenses. So people who can understand the customer deeply, the consumer deeply, understand their competitors, suppliers, and can see from a systems point of view what needs to be done, and that they are determined to make sure that the outcomes for everybody is positive. And those people are really important, and there's never been a more important time because of the pandemic is just accelerating. It's exaggerating all of our problems. And so this is a time to reach out to those people, look out for them, because they're not always the people in the senior roles. Sometimes they're the people who are working in the middle management, or they may be working on the farm, but it's a particular type of leader who has really strong empathy skills. So I think look out for those emerging leaders.
So Jackie, would you advise then that all businesses have that graphic up there with the purple in the middle? Can people move from one colour to the other, or if I'm purple, I'll never be the other colour there?
Absolutely, and we want diversity. So you need to have different skills, and there are times that being highly competitive is awesome, and don't lose those skills. And we've got to be able to flex, but it does start with self-awareness, and I think that's the point, is to just think about yourself. There are tools where you can do tests. In fact, I haven't got one, but I'll put one up on the website. I'll see if I can get that done within the next day. So you can do a test to figure out, well, what are you, so that you know your starting point. And we're all able to change, but I guess that's the point, that the change can start. This is something really practical that each of us can do, and we can shine the light on those who naturally tend to be collaborative. Because there are lots of people who are doing that in our communities, and to use that purpose, and I think the purpose right now is really, really strong. We've got a uniting sense of purpose to bring us all together. And if we can do this, we will be ahead of, competitive comes in now, we will be ahead of all those other states and countries who haven't got their act together. So, that gives us as a state, a competitive advantage on the global stage if we can act collaboratively, create those jobs, bring those technologies to life across agriculture and food, and produce those sustainable, resilient, climate-resilient food systems. This is a space that we can really own, and our purpose is to do our bit. It's that Silicon Valley mentality. We give first, we help feed the world with our healthy, nutritious food, and we will get great jobs, we will get sustainable communities, and we'll help make a difference.
Yeah, Fabian, are you going to show everybody from the paddock to your most senior managers that graphic and say, let's start identifying where our management talent lies?
They remind
I've done Myers-Briggs 3 times trying to be a different person and it hasn't worked. I just go and answer a few questions slightly differently and it keeps coming back with the same one. So I don't think I can move.
Look, I don't have much to add to Jackie's comments. I think she's got it pretty wrapped up. But I'd say that, first of all, probably being honest. And when we had the pandemic happen, it was one of those times that we didn't have the answers, and we were talking with colleagues in government, and right when it was happening, none of us had the answers. And just that willingness to engage with the right attitude and open up doors. There's no way in the world that I could have called Queensland Health in February. They would be wondering who I was, and I'd be wondering who they were. But DAF, in that case, were able to actually connect all the dots and actually make all the linkages. And very quickly we came up with some solutions. And look, on day one, those solutions weren't perfect, but we kept on refining week after week. Yeah, I'd just say that's more of an example to what you were saying, Jackie. Yeah. Thank you.
How are we going for, do we have a, that's my boss at the microphone, so I'd better say, Kathy, ask a question.
Thank you, Pip. Kathy Schnetzling from ABC Landline. A question for both of you. COVID has presented great challenges and it's brought about an acceleration in change. All 3 speakers today have referenced that. And a lot of that change has been very positive. I can't see that we'll be going back to the way things were. What do you see, while it is positive and it's happening now and we're still thinking on our feet and dealing with that, volatile world and disruption, what do you think are going to be the challenges that are going to prevent that positive change from continuing to happen?
I think the challenges that are going to perhaps hinder positive change coming through from the COVID impacts will be our human traits of, reverting back to survival sort of instincts. And with that comes about, that we end up looking after our own patch too much, that we, it then becomes really hard to be able to shift into, well, how do we work in a way that's going to benefit everyone when we just want to be making sure that we're looking after ourselves. So that's sort of like at the human level, and in our sort of our value set and how our behaviour. When I think about globally, what those impacts are going to be, I'm probably most concerned about supply chains going into the future. And so because of my work, I do talk to people in France, I'm talking to people in China, or I'm talking to people in the States, and really regularly. And I'm hearing the conversations that are actually really similar to what we're hearing in Australia, that everyone's really concerned about food security in their patch. So, and so I think the challenges around supply chains and about food production systems, that's what I'm probably most concerned about, coupled with are we likely to have more pandemics in the future, and are they? I'm a Queenslander. I'm a betting girl. I think we're probably might be having a few more in the future, perhaps in my lifetime. And are they potentially going to be the same as now, or could they be worse? And could there be other type of epidemics? In biosecurity epidemics, and I think that the likelihood of these is high. So I always go back to my strategic models. I think this is a risk that we seriously need to consider, and so therefore we need to be putting the governance structures and the ways of working in place now. It's almost like we'll see this as a golden opportunity to get our act together, to be collaborative and be able to respond really quickly so that we can work through this going into the future.
So I'd just add to Jackie's comments that we've responded, we've come through with initial solutions, but they're probably not the end solutions. Currently, every day at our farms, we have staff at the front of gates taking temperature testing of staff that are coming in. That's a new cost to the business that we haven't had. All the enhanced measures that we've had to put in place, there's additional cost. And at the end of the day, that's very hard for the supply chain to absorb. So finding innovative ways of trying to automate and deal with these additional issues and challenges in our food supply chain is something that we really have to start facing into. It was almost an adrenaline rush to go and put all these measures in, and really, of course, the safety of our people was number one in our communities. And I think most of the agricultural producers actually had that at front of mind, but at the end of the day, we now have to commercialise that. And I don't think we're through the gates yet. We've seen in Victoria with the meatworks down there, really the packing and processing facilities, we've worked very closely to get safe food guidelines and solutions in place. But I know in our industry with fruit and produce, if you were to see a shutdown of a plant for a month or two, it doesn't matter what size the family fruit and vegetable business is, it could mean the end of their production ongoing. So we're far from out of the gates, but certainly what I've seen with enthusiasm and the breaking down of barriers, certainly our Queensland industry is very determined to make sure that we're sustainable.
Sorry, I've got raised hands up the back.
Thank you, Pip. We've got a few questions coming from our online audience here, but I'll just take one here from Hugh. He's asked, what can we do to accelerate the rate of innovation in those sectors that are not very close to the consumer, example, sugar?
Who wants that one?
So I think the question is, how can we accelerate innovation in those industries that are not very close to the consumer? So, such as the sugar industry. So I guess sounds like the problem straight away would be, well, how do we get closer to the consumer? How do we look at some of the processes of how to innovate more effectively? And so I'd be starting at looking at, number one, looking at what the observations are and trying to pull together a collective so that if you are in the sugar industry, how can you actually get closer to the consumer and the other stakeholders in your value chain so that you can have a better view of what the bigger problems are that you need to solve so that you can innovate more effectively from there. So I'd be taking a process approach and trying to bring into your line of sight people, so bringing the outside in to the industry so that you can have a better understanding of what the systemic problems are. It's an industry really, really interesting at the moment. That certainly would be worth looking into. Thanks.
And at the microphone, would you like to ask your question?
How you going? Jerome Leray here. Just want to say thanks to both of you for your talks. Really interesting. You both talked about problems and how they're potentially the opportunity. What's the biggest problem and therefore the biggest opportunity for Queensland agriculture?
We've been talking about COVID because that's obviously the challenge at the moment, but not forgetting there's actually always one around the corner that's more probably weather related or pest related. I think it's about being able to have to spin all the plates or keep all the balls in the air and be able to deal with them, because if we turn all our focuses just to one crisis, it'll be always the second or third crisis that actually gets you. So I think that keeping very broad with understanding all of the challenges and being balanced with having attention to addressing each one of them. So I raised the full armyworm as an example, and we put a lot of attention into the COVID measures, and our team worked hard on full armyworm, but yeah, that's caused a lot of damage, and I can sort of see where if we don't have a balanced approach with addressing, because there will be another flood or there will be another drought, and we've got to cope with that along with all the other challenges. So I think that there's strength in numbers, and I know we're talking a lot about collaboration, and I think that there's some great solutions. We heard from Sarah that the technology and automation piece, there's a lot of great work that's happening with our institutions, our universities, and government certainly is getting right behind all of that. So yep, we need all the help we can get.
I love this question. What are the biggest problems, and so therefore what are the biggest opportunities for an agriculture and food in Queensland? So I think our biggest problems, and again I'm grounding this from a world point of view, is that I think we particularly have a lot of climatic problems that other parts of the world don't have as bad as what we have. So we've talked about them a lot today, You've got the new worm, you've got, as well, but we've got the droughts, we've got the fires, we've got the floods, we've got the tyranny of distance, which is all sort of part of that climate too. So you combine that with all these amazing strengths. Like we've got these incredibly smart people, like the people producing the algae and the scientists and the technologies and the robots and everything like that. So you combine if we can overcome those biggest problems with the smarts that we have in this state and creatively, collaboratively pull that together, I think we have a really strong case for having credibility on a world stage of being leaders in climate-resistant, resilient, sustainable food production systems. And that could be our space that we really own and we rocket it.
I'm being given the no more questions sign because time has run out. But if you would like to ask a question, there is an email, which I just need to find. Sorry, and you can email a question and that could be answered later. And that's agfutures@DAF, which is daf.qld.gov.au, and they'll follow up with you after the event. Well, thank you to both of you. I've got about a zillion questions, but I always hope sometimes that audience won't be so quick off the mark because then I can get one in. But thank you very much for your answers and your insight. The final part of our program today includes the presentation of the Queensland Agricultural Awards, the Peter Kenny Medal and the Minister's Emerging Leader Award. These awards are a way of recognising the outstanding work of individuals and organisations who are leaders, influencers and are innovative in their approach to tackling issues within the sector. And again this year we are presenting our award finalists and winners with a husk bowl. These products are made locally out of compressed macadamia shell and resin, showing the innovative use of the byproduct of a nut that everyone knows and loves, and they are quite beautiful and sought after around the world. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the Honourable Mark Furner, Minister for Ag, Industry Development and Fisheries, back to the stage for the first award. Shetland and the Clydesdale up here. The Minister's Emerging Leader Award recognises a person between 18 and 30 who is an innovative leader in the field and is making a real difference to their community or broader industry. This year's finalists for the Minister's Emerging Leader Award are drawn from a diverse cross-section of the agricultural sector, each making a positive difference to their community and broader industry. And it gives me great pleasure to announce the following 4 finalists for the Minister's Emerging Leader Award: Jerome Leray, John McLaughlin, Molly O'Day and Dr Elizabeth Worrell. Feels good to clap again, doesn't it? You can't do that on Zoom or Teams. So thank you to all our finalists who've demonstrated remarkable achievements in their chosen fields. Your contributions to your industries and communities have not gone unnoticed, and you're all exceptional role models for other young people within the ag sector in Queensland. I will now ask the Minister to take the lectern to announce the winner of the Minister's Emerging Leader Award.
Firstly, congratulations to all the finalists, but it gives me great pleasure this morning to announce the winner, Jerome Leray. Congratulations. Well done, Jerome.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words?
Love to. Just like to say thank you. This is a great honour and privilege. As most of you know, I come from Goondiwindi. It's a community that has a rich history of agriculture and agriculture innovation. We have a pretty strong community. So it's a real honour to be able to have this award. And I'm really excited about agriculture and the future of agriculture. I run a small agricultural intelligence company looking at artificial intelligence to help our farmers. And we've been developing some tools to really put that power into the hands of farmers. So we talk about, invasions of worms. How do I actually give the farmer the tools to be able to enable them to detect these problems and then be able to proactively go and solve them? And we've been putting these tools in front of kids at schools, developing a couple of different programs to really get kids excited in agriculture. It's not just farming, it's all the services and all the technology and everything else that's around there. And we're really excited to basically try and change the way that agriculture has been done to bring us into this next phase. Queensland farmers have been amazing at innovation and being the best farmers in the world. That's what I believe. We've got variable climates. We invented the RTK system. We have the world's longest spray rig, the world's longest planter, best pork in the world, in the country, best beef in the world was grown here in Queensland, biggest organic chook producer, biggest pig producer, biggest free-range pig producer, all Queensland companies and family businesses. So we have a long and rich history, and hopefully I can continue to try and bring that technology to the forefront, especially into this new innovation of Ag 4.0, as a lot of people are calling it, which is the technology side of agriculture. And so this is a great honour to be able to have that. I'd like to thank the Minister. I've had a lot of support from the Queensland Government through the Ignite Ideas program. The Department of Ag has been absolutely incredible in supporting us, and so have our local farmers. So just want to say thank you to everyone. And I'd also like to say thank you to AgForce. About two to 3 years ago, they supported me in a big way to get some of my ideas off the ground. So it's all around collaboration, community. This is what we're for as Queenslanders, and I'm really proud to be here today with this award. So thank you.
Congratulations, Jerome, and I think every farmer watching or here just loves the idea that you're out there with kids, making them excited about ag, and please keep doing that. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our second award for today, the Peter Kenny Medal. Peter Kenny had a long and active involvement in Queensland agriculture, including as AgForce President from 2004 to 2008, when I interviewed him many times. Central Queensland born and bred, Peter was one part of the visionary team that pushed for the amalgamation of the Cattlemen's Union, the United Graziers Association and the Queensland Grain Growers Association to form AgForce. He also served as a board member of the National Farmers Federation. And I think to do that, Jackie, he was the perfect person on that square on your graph. He began his professional life as a teacher at Croydon and Normanton in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and also managed a diverse range of properties in the cattle, dairying and horticulture industry. He was active in mentoring and training young people interested in a career in agriculture. He's best remembered as a leader who took a big picture approach, who focused on communication and collaboration. He was also highly successful in bridging the country-city divide with the well-known Every Family Needs a Farmer media campaign. His leadership legacy is remembered through the Peter Kenny Medal, which is awarded to an individual displaying professional excellence and leadership in the development and or delivery of innovative agricultural products, services or technology that makes an outstanding contribution to the profitability and sustainability of the ag, fisheries and forestry sector. We are so pleased the members of the Kenny family are able to join us today, and I would like to invite Hilary to join the Minister on stage to present the winner. Hilary Kenny. This year's finalists are remarkable examples of innovation and leadership within ag, fisheries and forestry sectors. Each finalist has made a significant contribution to their chosen field, going above and beyond the scope of the usual role through the delivery of a product, a service or a technology that has made a point of difference. A unique value proposition to the industry demonstrates the innovation and or creative approach to addressing an existing emerging problem in the ag, fisheries or forestry sector. Our 5 finalists are exceptional leaders in their respective fields, and I acknowledge all of their hard work and dedication to making a difference in their industries and communities. Our finalists for the Peter Kenny Medal are Stuart Armitage, Fabian Carneil, Bree Grimer, Rob McGavin and Frank Sharker. Oh. Interviewed 3 out of the 5. There you go. 2 to go. Track them down. I will now ask the Minister to return to the lectern to announce the winner of the Peter Kenny Medal.
Thanks, Pip. And once again, congratulations to all the 5 finalists. There's a good range of people there, and some of them I have had the privilege to have many engagement with. And I want to thank Hilary for being on the stage with us today to be present for this presentation. But the winner goes to someone I've had the privilege to stand on that farmer's property, be in some of his equipment, harvesting cotton, and today's winner goes to Stuart Armitage.
Thank you, everyone. I'm quite shocked at getting this. I don't think I deserve it, but none of this is ever attained as an individual. I've been surrounded throughout my life. First of all, I've got to thank Maxine. She has stood by me. There's been plenty of times I haven't been on the farm and she's had to carry the load. I've enjoyed every minute of the journey that I've taken. When I left school, I never intended to. I just wanted to be a farmer, but it's an industry that you've got to give back to. And if it's an industry that gives to you, but I found that if you give back, you get more. And to be able to work with farmers throughout Queensland, which is what I've done, and see the innovation, and we've heard a lot about innovation, and every week we have a meeting with our agronomist on the farm and we talk about innovation, and we talk about sustainability, and we talk about going forward. And if you're not doing that in your industry, I'm just sorry, but I don't think you're going anywhere. I was on a farm on Saturday and he produces plants and he's grafting watermelons onto pumpkins, and that's innovative. And I don't think too many people, but that's going on in Queensland, and it's to try and beat disease. And we're working on our farm, our innovation is to try and produce, or we are producing, arguably some of the best product as cotton in the world and the most sustainable. And it's recognised in places, but in other places we're probably the most hated industry in Australia also, and we've got to try and get beyond that and to be recognised as what we do is world-leading innovation. And probably one of the most interesting things we do on our farm is that we don't use a chemical fertiliser anymore, but we're using the sewage that Brisbane produces to grow our cotton. And it's we're now moving into the carbon plus zone where we can get recognised for the carbon that we're putting in the soil and retaining there. So, but wherever I go in Queensland, the farmers are being innovative and progressive and looking forward. And we heard about the problems of the sugar industry, but when you talk to the actual growers, they're still wanting to go forward, and they are going forward and they're innovative. And it's just the cost of doing that business and where we sell that innovative product is going to be the problem going forward. But I'd like to thank everyone for recognising me with this medal, and in doing that they recognise our family as well, because and all the people that have surrounded me through the journey. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to our winner of the Peter Kenny Medal. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, could you please thank Mrs. Hilary Kenny, our winners and finalist speakers and special guests. Today's Ag Futures Forum has shed incredible light on how Queensland continues to position itself as a leader in ag innovation. That brings us to the conclusion of Ag Futures 2020. I wonder where we'll all be for Ag Futures 2021. I wonder if you'll still have a job doing. I hope, no offence, but I hope you lose that job, if that's all right. So on behalf of the department, thank you for your engagement today. I hope everybody at home online enjoyed the speakers, and if you're in your tracky dacks, just make sure that next year you get out the suit and hopefully we can all be here together. Thank you for your support of Ag Futures 2020. See you in 2021. Thanks everyone.